Hello, welcome to True Crime Talk. This is Kathleen, and I'm here to discuss another article I found regarding the Michael Gaine case. Once I found out that they had found some possible human body parts or remains at his farm, I figured, well, they it's going to be him that they found. Although they haven't done the DNA yet, so we don't know for sure. But if it's human, it's most likely him. I mean, who else would be dead on his property? But then I began to think, well, maybe it's just an accident because when like some people commented on my channel about what a slurry is and how it works and how they use it on the farm, I was thinking, well, he fell in a pit and then the slurry machinery that they used to spray the farm with like did something to his body and made it be in small pieces, and then for whatever reason, just when he first went missing, they didn't find his body. But then today I've read other articles that make me think, well, no, obviously he was murdered. So let me read this article and I'll tell you what makes me. Well, obviously, I mean they've ruled it, or they've treated it as a homicide, so obviously they think it's murder too. But I was thinking, oh, maybe it's just some accident for whatever reason they didn't find his body quickly, which was odd because you would think, if he had some accident, they would find his body or what happened to him, some kind of farm accident or drowning on his property. So I was hopeful maybe it's just an accident and it won't be a murder, but it obviously it looks like it is a murder now. If that is his body, when the DNA comes back, it says Michael Gaine, Gardaí confirmed body parts found in search for missing Kerry farmer. Investigators examining areas of farm in investigation into disappearance of Kerry farmer believed murdered. And there's a picture there of the investigators. It says partial human remains have been discovered on the farm of missing County Kerry farmer Michael Gaine. The Gardaí confirmed on Saturday evening. I'm just going to say Gardaí because I can't pronounce that word right there. State pathologist Dr. Sally Ann Collis and forensic anthropologist Laureen Buckley, assisted by the Gardaí Technical Bureau, have carried out preliminary examinations at the scene on Saturday afternoon. A crime scene was declared after the discovery of the remains on Friday evening. The suspected body parts will be subject to DNA analysis to determine if they are those of Mr. Gaine. Searches are ongoing to recover any further human remains, said the Gardaí in a statement. Gardaí were alerted to the find by a family member and two neighbors after they began spreading slurry that they had drained from a tank on Mr. Gaine's farm outside Kenmare. The discovery was made by the family member and neighbors at around 6 p.m. on Friday. Gardaí immediately designated the slurry tank in the two well-kept fields where the slurry was spread, close to the farmstead, as a crime scene. The state pathologist arrived at the scene at Carrick East near Kenmare, along with officers from the Gardaí Technical Bureau and detectives late on Saturday afternoon. Shortly before 5 p.m., Dr. Collis and accompanying Gardaí made their way to the large slatted cattle shed on the property. Earlier on Saturday afternoon, a large slurry agitator, a large metal mixer which is used to break up solids in slurry tanks so they can be spread, along with a pump and gutter unit into the slatted unit, appeared to be the focus of examination by the pathologist and Gardaí. Slurry spreaders were also being examined. See, this information right here would make somebody think, well, maybe he fell into a pit or some type of farm area, and he either he had like a heart attack and he fell in something, and then later his body was messed up by this large metal mixer. But then when you read the rest of the article, it makes you think, well, no, it's murder. A line of uniformed Gardaí were also methodically searching one of the fields, which had been declared a crime scene using metal pickers. A number of yellow evidence markers had been placed at various locations in the fields. A large media presence and several friends of the missing man were at the scene at the remote mountain farm outside Kenmare. Locals who spoke to the media said they are saddened but will be relieved for Mr. Gaine's friends and family if his remains are found. Mr. Gaine's 1,000-acre farm straddles the ring of Cary Road, and it is understood the sealed-off area is located near Mr. Gaine's farmyard, which is 6 kilometers northwest of Kenmare Town. Mr. Gaine, 56, was last seen in Kenmare on Thursday, March 20th, and was reported missing the following day. His bronze Toyota RAV4 was discovered in his farmyard off the N71 at Carrick East with his wallet and phone inside. His disappearance was so sudden and out of character that Gardy suspected foul play from the outset. Mr. Gaine visited a Centra shop in Kenmare on the morning of his disappearance, and it is assumed, though unproven, that he drove his car from Kenmare to his farmyard. Extensive searches were carried out on surrounding lands by members of the Defense Forces and Cary Mountain Rescue as well as volunteers, but no trace of Mr. Gaine was found. Gardy had previously searched the slurry tank. See, they previously searched it, draining the main chamber and then filtering slurry from a smaller chamber into the main tank, but they found no sign of Mr. Gaine's body. So if he was there at the time they searched, they didn't find it, or somebody could have perhaps came back and placed the body there after they searched, thinking they wouldn't search it again and they could get away with hiding his body. They are now working on the theory that if the remains found on the field turn out to be those of Mr. Gaine, he may have been dismembered before being disposed of in the slurry tank. So, in other words, this isn't just some accident where somebody could have been working on a slurry tank and fallen in, or could have had a heart attack and fallen in. Obviously, if they believe he was dismembered before being disposed of in the slurry tank, then obviously he was murdered. So hopefully now they have found his body and can progress the investigation to finding the person or persons responsible for his murder and get justice for Michael. On April 29th, almost 6 weeks after Mr. Gaine vanished, the case was upgraded to a homicide inquiry. Gardy said that based on the entirety of the information available to the investigation team, a decision had been made to reclassify the missing person inquiry. Investigators believed that he had been killed and his killer had disposed of his remains either by burying them on the mountain farm or disposing of them in a lake or some other body of water. To help them rule out the possibility that Mr. Gaine's body remained on the surface, Gardy recruited the assistance of the National Parks and Wildlife Service to track the movements of birds of prey. They asked the NPWS to monitor the birds to see if they were congregating in any one area, and they tracked the birds to a hillside location, only to discover that they drawn to a dead animal. Gardy also requested the NPWS to put up night drones to monitor the movements of foxes in case they too were being drawn to any remains that were above ground on the hillside farm. At the time, they reclassified their investigation from a missing persons inquiry to a full murder investigation. The team based on Killarney Gardy Station had made over 320 formal inquiries, taken almost 130 witness statements, and viewed over 2,200 hours of CCTV and dash cam footage. Gardy also appointed a family liaison officer to brief Mr. Gaine's wife Janice and other family members. The decision to upgrade the investigation to a murder inquiry came just days after Miss Gaine and her sister-in-law, Noreen O'Regan, made a video appeal for anyone with information to contact Gardy. Miss Gaine said, "We just want Michael to come home. We want to know what happened to him because if we can't find Michael, I don't know what I am going to do. He was my best friend, my husband, and the whole thing has been devastating. He loved his home, he loved his farm, he loved his farm." Okay, they repeated. I'm not repeating, they repeated. He loved his animals, he loved his rallying. He had lots of friends, he was a popular guy, and his disappearance was totally out of character. And that's the end of the article. So by reading this article, I definitely now see, and I've known that the police have thought it was a homicide, but now I definitely see why it's most likely a homicide and not just some accident or medical emergency and his body just wasn't found. Obviously, if he was put in something that he couldn't have got into himself by accident or fallen into and then passed away that way, then obviously, and they think he was dismembered. That's just awful. Just horrific to think about. But so I guess the police now are just going to wait for the DNA to come back to confirm it's him and continue on with the investigation. But obviously, it's a murder investigation, so obviously somebody is out there who did something to Michael. One person, possibly more than one person. So hopefully they will be caught soon. As far as suspects, I haven't learned any more about any different suspects other than, there's that mention of the American veteran who was staying or living at his property. I have no information on him about why he might be a suspect or if he is the suspect. I have read article or saw in videos of people say that they have, of course, they've interviewed a lot of people, but where they do consider him a suspect. But I don't know if if the Gardaí have like formally announced that. I haven't seen that. Like I said before, it seems like the Irish police are much better at keeping information secret or guarding information that they have from the media and the public, because like in America, the media would just be, and I'm sure they are, I know the media's on this case there in Ireland and all over like different parts of the world, but the media in America for a case that happened here that took, gained public attention like this, the media would just be all over it. The media and the media are there at the farm, but I mean, the media would just be, it's just, and I'm sure that, the Irish media can be just as aggressive as the American media, but I just know if this case was in America, people would be leaking all over the place as far as like the media would have secret sources who gave out information. And so we would know more about suspects, who they think did this, what the family thinks. I haven't heard anything, other than their appeal, the wife and the sister. I haven't heard anything about any other family members, what they think. I've saw some interviews with some of Michael's friends, but it's just a lot different, in my opinion, than this case would be if it was in America, because it would just be nonstop information coming out, whether it was accurate or not. So I guess it's a good thing that the Irish media isn't as bad as the American media, but at least it doesn't seem that way to me. But I'm not there in Ireland, so, but it obviously seems like this was definitely a murder, and Michael is deceased. And so, unfortunately, he's not just out there living his best life somewhere, just decided to leave his home and family and farm animals for some reason and go stay somewhere else. He is definitely probably deceased. And so now they need to find out who did this. And I'm just so curious, once this case does get solved, and I think it will eventually get solved and won't be like an unsolved case for years and years, is that why was he murdered? Was it just some argument with somebody that turned into a physical altercation, and then they had to dispose of the body? Of course, the reason people dispose of bodies is they don't want to get caught. Nobody wants to get caught, go to prison, or get arrested. So was it, hopefully it wasn't some planned murder by somebody he knew and trusted. Hopefully he wasn't betrayed in that way. I guess the best case scenario is just some altercation that led to a fight and he died quickly and painlessly as possible. But it's horrific that they say somebody might have dismembered his body, but that's just like, once you've killed somebody and you don't want to get caught, you do whatever you have to hide the body, I guess. And I guess some people think it's necessary to just cut up a body to help them hide it the best way. So that's just a little update on the Michael Gaine case. It's so sad. I mean, obviously, he's been missing since March 20th, so it didn't look good that, he's not just going to pop up somewhere alive. But it's just so sad that now it's probably not going to be an accident. He's definitely been a murder victim. This is an article on MSN. I won't read all of it because, a lot of it, the information is repetitious. But this article says Gardy believed Michael Gaine was chopped up and dumped in slurry tank as suspected body parts found. So this explains it to me a little bit better about exactly what happened or what they think happened. Gardy believed missing farmer Michael Gaine was chopped up and dumped in a slurry tank, with the tank then emptied and spread across several fields. So he might have, whoever murdered him might have done this earlier on than. So let's see. The Irish Mirror can now reveal that several small body parts have been found in a number of fields over the past 24 hours, which investigators believe are the remains of Michael Gaine. It's understood that officers have now come to the conclusion that 58-year-old sheep farmer who vanished without trace 8 weeks ago and is suspected to have been killed was chopped up and dumped in a slurry tank. The belief now is that this tank was then emptied and spread across several fields, a source has told the Mirror. All of these fields are being checked, and a number of other body parts have been discovered. So obviously this is going to turn out to be Michael, most likely. Um, so my question is, did whoever murdered him uh, like use the slurry, after they dismembered him, whatever they did to him, put him in the tank, did they then use the slurry machinery to spray the fields, knowing that his body would be spread out all over the fields? And was he there in the beginning, but the police just didn't know to look for minute body pieces? In other words, does the machinery uh, cut up the body so tiny and such small? I mean, wouldn't like a police dog have smelled the pieces if they were out there then? So maybe it was just in the tank until the family and friends used it on Friday, the machinery to spray the fields. I'm not sure. So I'm not understanding that part. But in other words, I don't know how long the body parts that they've discovered have been laying out in the field. I know some of them maybe were sprayed out onto the farm fields on Friday, but there are other body parts sprayed earlier, like around the time of his death. Did the murderer, do that to try and go ahead and get rid of a lot of the body? Okay, so that's just the same information, but let's see if they got any new information. This is picture. Yeah, so they just have a lot of the same information as the other articles. So I won't read the whole things, but such a beautiful farm area. Just wonder what could have happened. Was it a premeditated murder? Was it just something happened and then to get rid of the body, whoever got rid of his body knew about farm equipment or how to hide a body. Guess it's easy to hide bodies on farms or to dismember bodies on farms because you have equipment there and tools. It's just awful to think about that somebody was murdered on their own property, on their own farm. And, it's just horrendous what people do to other people. But, and I hope there's no family members involved, is that it's somebody else, a neighbor, somebody he thought was a friend, or somebody, some kind of argument. the American veteran living on his property, or just some random stranger. They got in an argument, something turned bad. And I just hope it's not like a wife situation or somebody on behalf of the wife. I guess I had that in my head because here in America, of course, it happens all the time all over the world where spouses kill each other. But here in America, I recently watched the trial of Fabio Cementilli, who was the famous hairdresser and now a turned corporate executive who was murdered by his wife and two other men. She didn't actually murder him. She like conspired with two other men to have him murdered. It's just awful case, and just what people like. She was married to him for to Fabio. Fabio's wife was married. They were married for over 20 years and had two daughters. And everybody, both sides of the family, Fabio's side of the family and the wife's side of the family, and I forget her name, but I don't care about her name. She's going to be in prison for life, hopefully. But they all thought they had a great marriage and they were a very loving couple and that they were both happy. Well, Fabio was happy, but what he didn't know was his wife apparently wasn't happy, and she did the ultimate betrayal. She had him murdered in cold blood, stabbed to death, and she was tried for it and she was convicted. She hasn't been sentenced yet, but I assume, even though it's California, sometimes they can be lenient, that she will get life in prison for not only murder, I think it's first degree murder, but conspiracy to commit murder and all that. So that, I guess because that's on my mind, that's why I keep going back to the wife or family members. Because not only do spouses kill each other sometimes, but kids kill their parents, siblings kill their siblings. So was it some kind of family deal? I hope not. It would just be better if it's a stranger or just some random person or acquaintance. But it's just awful what the police are saying they think happened to him now. It's just so awful. But that is the latest update in the Michael Gaine case. Um, I want to keep up with this case, but I'm just so disappointed that it didn't turn out to just be some accident, or I know the police investigated it as a homicide, but that doesn't necessarily mean they had to be right. But obviously they knew stuff. They have information that they don't give to the public. So it's sad. I hope his wife and family wasn't involved. That's just so sad what people do to each other. But if his family was involved, that is just the ultimate betrayal, like in the case we recently had here in America with Fabio Cementilli.